So here in Mexico, there's this interesting phenomenon in the culture that someone from the West might easily recognize, which is there's a big culture of both forgiveness and allowance. So it is allowed for you to play your music in your house really crazy loud, like walls shaking loud, all night until 5 a.m. This is the kind of thing that would probably violate a nuisance or noise ordinance and be considered a nuisance complaint in the United States. And you can call the police and they'll come and they'll take care of it for you because it's sort of like culturally accepted that that is a kind of an oral violence on your neighbors and probably against the law. Here, there seems to be some sort of like respect for whatever you want to do in the privacy of your own home, even if your own home doesn't keep that thing private. Similarly, people run late. People say, hey, let's talk, and they never follow up. And what is really striking to me is when there's an opportunity to make money, like come on Friday at 10 a.m. to cut my grass, no one shows up and they don't say anything about it. And so there's a lot of lack of clarity. I personally noticed in terms of clarifying boundaries. Like you just kind of live in the not knowing. And to make someone clarify their boundaries might be considered aggressive or violent. So this is really interesting, right? Like where culturally a lack of boundaries or culturally a lack of clear boundaries is considered normal. And to have clear boundaries or to have more integrity or to expect more integrity is considered the violation. So if let's just say I get mad that you didn't come at 10 a.m. to cut my grass. People don't know what to do with that because they are allowed to not come when they said they were going to come. So here, because of the culture, if you're used to it and this is what you grew up with and this is what you think of as normal, what you consider normal and or bad boundaries is different than if you grew up in the States. And it's not like the States necessarily has better boundaries, it just has different boundaries. And this is interesting. If you travel to a lot of countries, you just notice the difference between what is considered normal in terms of bad boundaries and not normal in terms of bad boundaries. And so I wanted to highlight here the idea that the masculine is supposed to defend the boundaries of the feminine. And when the masculine lacks integrity, there can be rape or violation. So at large in Mexico, there's this conversation around toxic machismo and stuff like that. And I think that this is reflective of the masculine not necessarily being expected to have high integrity. That is also why you can play loud music until 5 a.m., like all night up through 5 a.m. This is why you're also allowed to not show up for a literal job appointment. At the same time, because the feminine's boundaries are not that well defended, they're just kind of like allow more and allow more and allow more. There's this kind of interesting generosity that I've also noticed where you can pay tomorrow for something that you don't have money for today. And there's trust that you'll come tomorrow. On the bus, you'll just like send your money up to the front and the passengers will just, pass the money amongst them. And the change is passed amongst them back to you. Complete trust in the system. People don't take advantage of that. So isn't that interesting that there are certain things that are habitually violated, and as a result, it can be reflected in habitual violation that's endemic in the culture, like oral violation, for example, or appointment time violation. But there's a kind of generosity that also is a part of that mix that may not be possible if there was more integrity expected and demanded in the other areas. And I think this kind of warmth and some other kind of trustworthiness that I experience in Mexican culture is just so interesting, and at least for me is refreshing. In many ways, you can surrender in the person-to-person interactions. This is just my personal experience. In a person-to-person interaction, you can surrender. In the transactional interaction, if you want to be a part of the culture here, you have to change your expectations, and the kind of integrity you were used to in your home culture, you can't expect over here. So in the transactional, it's different, but in the personal, it's also different in the other way. So transactional, you expect and get less because that's what's normalized here. But in the interpersonal, you expect and you get more because that's also what's normalized here. And I just think that this is interesting that there's a lot of forgiveness because it's not really considered that violent what has happened. And this goes hand in hand with the masculine and its role. In my opinion, forgiveness is masculine. And there's a lot of like generosity as well in the feminine and allowing, even though it's also being violated a lot. So I just wanted to point this out and talk about it a little bit. I'm pretty sure you might have experienced similar things depending on whatever cultures you've crossed, or if you're familiar with either Mexican or Latin American culture. So, okay, thanks for listening. Talk to you next time. Bye.